all. wall. Wall.
Americanism, not globalism, will be our credo. It's going to be only America first. America first. The American people will come first once again. With respect, the respect that we deserve. From this day forward, it's going to be only America
Good evening, everybody. We're watching America First. My name is NickJFuentes. We have a great show for you tonight. Very excited to be back with you here today, and we are actually back because I wasn't here yesterday. My apologies for the late notice. Didn't get to do the show last night. Wasn't feeling so hot, but I'm feeling better now. Feeling very well rested, very energized, charged up. You know, people have been noticing I've been doing a couple of streams on D Live this week. We ended up doing, on Monday, I counted up all the hours. I did 12 hours of content on Monday. I did like 7 hours on D Live. I did 2.5 hours on the show. I did 2 hours on the premium show. I did 5 hours on D Live on Tuesday, 2 hours on the show. People are like, the content output has been crazy. I can't keep up with it. And you can't keep up with it watching it. Imagine making it, right? So we overdid it a little bit. Overdid it. Overextended myself, overexerted a little bit, but that's okay. We're back tonight. We've got a great show for you. A lot to talk about. Wow, a lot happening. Lots happening. I'm very disturbed. I'm very troubled by what I see happening in Turning Point USA. We're going to be starting off the show, and this will be the feature of our show, talking about Turning Point USA and their white knight, their shining hero, Kyle Kashuv, the Jewish survivor of the Parkland school shooting, who's had a little bit of a fall from grace. He's having a little bit of difficulty. It was reported this week, and everybody doubted me. Everybody gets on my case. You know, but here it was true. It was reported earlier this week, but unconfirmed, that he had made comments a few years ago which was very racist and offensive against black people, against Jews, against all sorts of characters. Like I said, very troubling, very, very disturbing if true. And it turned out that those allegations were true. It was verified by Kyle Kashuv, I think, last night. So we'll be talking about Kyle, our little friend Kyle. I don't think it's going to work out for him. It really makes me worry. You know, I'm very concerned when I see things like that. And then you come to find out, I peeled back the layers, and actually you'll find this is not the first time that Turning Point USA has had a problem like this with racist and bigoted people in the leadership of their club. And you know me, being a real campus conservative, somebody who doesn't see race, somebody who doesn't see nationality or gender or anything like that, or, you know, Jewish connections, I just don't see these things. I have to do my due diligence and report to you the facts, you know. It's no secret that the Christchurch shooter was radicalized by Candace Owens. And so, you know, a lot of people say, Nick, I like your show, but why do you fight with Charlie Kirk? Why do you fight with Turning Point USA? And I feel like there is some overlap, but in many ways, they're just too extreme for me. They're just too extreme for me. You know, and I caught a little bit of heat when I went to Iowa State University. They said, oh, well, they're saying that Turning Point USA hosted your speech. And Turning Point said, no, we didn't host his speech. He's not authorized to be a speaker with us. Now I know why. I'm not racist enough. I'm not an authorized speaker for Turning Point USA because, you know, I actually like black people. I actually don't have a problem with minorities or Muslims like they all do. I think that's why. So, you know, I'm not on the authorized speakers list. I think that's a good thing. I think that means I'm not racist and I'm a good person, right? I think that's what that means. So we're going to get into that. We'll talk about the incident in great detail, my thoughts on that. We'll be a little serious about it, I guess, as well. And then we'll also be talking about, and I think this is long overdue, because we've been talking a lot about what's happening with immigration. And there is a lot happening with immigration, actually, to report on. We'll probably have to save that for next week. But we haven't so much been talking about what's happening in the Middle East, which there's a few developments happening there. The first, of course, is with Iran. They're now reporting, and I just saw this today in Fox News, they're now reporting that a land bridge, not really a land bridge, I don't know if that's the right expression, but a passage has been created basically between Iran and Syria through Iraq, which, of course, now opens up a pathway for Iran to traffic through ultimately to Lebanon and to the Mediterranean Sea. And we're going to talk about that because that's a pretty curious revelation. We heard a lot of this kind of talk around September, around the fall of 2017, I believe. You always seem to find these kinds of satellite images, these disturbing finds, whenever we need to go to war with the Middle Eastern country, whenever we need a pretext, whenever we need a casus belli, we always seem to find satellite imagery And, of course, we can never interpret the satellite imagery. I see the satellite imagery and I'm like, what am I looking at? We need the experts to come in and tell us, this image of this desert in the Middle East, what this means is you have to go to North Iran right now. I look at the image, I'm like, what am I looking at? Some buildings, I guess a road or something. No. What that means is we have to invade immediately. So we'll be talking about that. We'll also be talking about this Pentagon plan, which has been leaked to a number of sources to put 5,000 to 10,000 troops in Iraq or somewhere in the Middle East broadly. And also the revelation, we're finding out for the fourth time, four and a half, I guess you could say, that the Assad regime is using chemical weapons again. How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man? I mean, we tell Bashar al-Assad in April 2017, you know what? Regime change is off the table. We will not invade. We will not interfere. You can be the rightful leader of Syria. I don't think they went that far, but they basically said, we are not seeking regime change anymore. Within a week, what does Assad do? The one thing, he does the only thing that would have invited American aggression. Wow, he just must be the stupidest person in the world. Within a week of America saying, no regime change, a chemical weapons attack, and we bomb him. And then a year later, almost a year later to the date, he does it again. And then within a few months, he does it again. And then we hear reports even last summer around the fall, he's using chemical weapons again. Now, never mind that there was actually a very recent report which said that never happened. All these chemical weapons attacks were investigated, never found the chemicals. That just was a lie. But they find, lo and behold, yet again, there was a possible chlorine gas attack on Sunday. So I'll be talking about that, and that should be our show, Kyle Kashuv and the foreign policy things, and it should be a pretty good show, pretty full show. I said something to this effect on Tuesday. I said, well, these are our topics, and that should do it for us. And somebody's like, oh, Nick is broken. He said that should do it for our show. He said the thing at the end of the show at the beginning. No, I meant and that should fill up the show, and that should complete the show after we talk about, do you see the pressure I'm under? Do you see why I sometimes have to take a day off? The pressure of being an e-celebrity constantly. It's like being under 1,000 feet of water. The pressure just constantly. The way I look, what I say, what I wear, the Nerf gun, the tweets, everything. It's always a neg, a criticism. It's unbearable. It's hard to live like this. Truly the toughest job in the world. One of the hardest job in the world. They say the hardest job in the world is being a mother. Move aside. What's so hard about being a mother? You're living with a baby. It's a baby. You get to be inside the whole day and watch television and, you maybe got to make baby food. It comes in a container. You don't even have to make it. And it's a baby. Oh, you got to change a diaper. Wow, that's so hard. Try being a content creator for 5 seconds, right? But anyway, we're going to jump right into the news here. Not a whole lot to say, other than that I'm well rested. Took a nice pre-show nap. Always nice when you can get one of those in. Resetting the sleep schedule involves a lot of fatigue during the day. Also, I had a heavy dinner. I had a lot of pasta, so I came home and I was just out. But that means we're charged up, we're ready to go. I guess you could have the Monster Zero Ultra, or you could have a good old-fashioned siesta. Good old-fashioned Mediterranean nap, right? We're going to dive right in here. We're going to start talking about this Kyle Kashuv character. I got to say, it really is a delicious moment. I mean, you say for so many days, slow news day, and then you get a gift. And then you get a gift like this. Good things happen to good people. Thank you. If you're up there, hey, thank you, my man, for this great story. Kyle Kashuv, it's leaked out by one of his former classmates, or one of his, I guess he's still in high school, actually. So one of his current classmates, former friend is the former. It's a former friend, a girl. It's a girl, very important detail there, who he was having a conversation with her. He was involved in Skype conversations, text conversations, a Google document, Google Docs that they edited together. And in all of these different documents, we are able to see evidence that this Kyle Kashuv character is a racist, doesn't like black people very much. He's typing things out like the N-word over 50 times. He's saying N-word jocks and talking about, oh, what a horrible thing it is to have N-word jocks. dating girls. He thinks that's a terrible thing. Girls should be afraid of them. He's making jokes about the Holocaust. He's making jokes about Adolf Hitler. That's a big... we say on this show, no anti-Semitism. Not covert, not ironic, not overt, not joking. Kyle Kashuv apparently loves this stuff. He gets off on this stuff. He's a sick guy like that. And this is according to the Huffington Post. It says, Kyle Kashuv, a pro-gun shooting survivor and former member of an embattled college Republican group, Turning Point USA, apologized Wednesday night on Twitter for racist remarks and slurs he made in text and Skype messages and in a shared Google document he made for a class study guide. And I'll read you the apology. It's not really an apology, but he writes, quote, I have recently been made aware of screenshots circulating that include offensive comments former classmates and I made a few years ago, long before the shooting. I want to address this with honesty and transparency. We were 16-year-olds making idiotic comments using callous and inflammatory language in an effort to be as extreme and shocking as possible. I'm embarrassed by it, but I want to be clear that the comments I made are not indicative of who I am or who I've become in the years since. This past year has forced me to mature and grow in an incredibly drastic way. My world, like everyone else's in Parkland, was turned upside down on February 14th. When your classmates, your teachers, and your neighborhoods are killed, it transforms you as a human being. I see the world through different eyes and am embarrassed by the petty, flippant kid represented in those screenshots. I believe those I've gotten to know since know that I'm a better person than that. I can and will do better moving forward. I just have to laugh. I had to pause there for a moment. He says, when your classmates, teachers, and neighbors are killed, it transforms you. I find that hilarious. That's the funniest thing to me. Not that people are dying or allegedly died. What I think is funny is that he says, well, I thought it was appropriate to, so casually use the N-word before the shooting, but then, a bunch of my classmates got killed in the building next to me, and now, I'm a different man. I'm a changed man. I was a racist before. The shooting happened. Now, not so much. I've seen I didn't see it. I was in a different building. But, that all happened, and now I'm not racist anymore. I think that's funny. He built his career. What does he build his career on top of? What is the foundation for his career? Oh, yeah, the dead bodies of his classmates. And now also we're going to stack the apology on top of that as well. I don't know if it could support all that weight. How many were killed? Can it support all that weight? These dead bodies supporting the weight of Kyle Kashuv's career and now the apology? That's a lot of stress on that foundation, right? But also, I notice in the statement, I'm not reading an apology. I'm sorry, I apologize to the people I've hurt. It's really more me. It's really all about me. And that's kind of something we see a lot. From these characters, people like Ben Shapiro, Kyle. It is sort of the spirit, I guess you could say, the sort of spirit of these people. Perhaps it's all about me. I'm embarrassed. It's not indicative of who I am. And I was just being immature, and I've grown up, and I'm a better person. I will do better. I'm embarrassed by it. But does it say, I apologize. I'm sorry. No, it's all pride. No apology. And here's what we're going to say about this. Look, frankly, I'll say this as a human person. Yeah, people make dumb statements. If this were anybody else in the world, if we could get serious for a second, if this were anybody else in the world, for the most part, I would say, what's the big deal? Who cares? It's words, for the most part. With teenagers, particularly with teenagers. If you have, and we've seen this many times, we see, this happens to a lot of professional athletes or college athletes. They'll go back to somebody's Twitter from like 2008 or 2012 when they were in high school, and it's like they call someone a fag on Twitter, or something like that. And typically it's no big deal. And I would defend that, and I would say, well, people are young sometimes, or times have changed. It's political correctness, whatever. It's in a different context. However, it matters that we're talking about Kyle Kashuv because, again, what is the standard set forward by Kyle Kashuv, and more importantly, his mentor, Ben Shapiro, and I guess boss, Charlie Kirk? The standard that they have set is that no matter how old you are, no matter who you are, if you slightly cross the line, you've got to be destroyed. These are Ben Shapiro's words exactly. If you remember, he went on the Dave Rubin show, this was in 2015 or 2016, He made very clear, he said the so-called real racists, those people that are actually, that the left is not just making things up or it's politically incorrect, but the people that are actually racist should be hunted down, fired from their jobs, lives destroyed. Well, okay. If that's the standard, then why does Kyle Kashuv get a pass? Because he's Jewish? It seems like that's the case, or he's a special friend of Ben Shapiro, right? That standard didn't apply to me. It's actually very funny. It is actually very personal in a way. It was personal for Thanos. It was personal for John Wick. It's personal for me, because all these people that come out of the woodwork to defend this kid, Shapiro, Reagan Battalion, a lot of others, they came after me for virtually the same thing 2 years ago. And actually what I said was a lot more mild. 2 years ago, I was caught on tape at the Leadership Institute saying, some colorful things. What did I say? Interracial relationships were thumbs down, and that Jewish people are out to get me in my daily life. Two things that, by the way, are factually true, okay? Factually correct. That's racist, it's offensive. By the way, factually true. But what was the standard applied to me? Was it he's a kid, give him another chance, people are being opportunists and they're coming after him? Or was it Ben Shapiro retweeting it to his 1 million followers? I was 18 at the time. And saying, this is deeply concerning. And Reagan Battalion, leaked video shows RSBN host NickJFuentes making racist anti-Semitic slurs. And Cassie Dillon calling my boss at RSBN saying, you need to fire him. He's got all these problems and so on. Right? So if that's the standard that is applied to these people, well, then the standard must be applied equally. If you have a problem with people saying things or being immature or whatever, well, then I'm sorry. The penance must be that Kyle Kashuv has to get his acceptance revoked at Harvard University. And he does have to get fired from Turning Point. He actually resigned earlier. The full story is that this girl apparently came to Kyle and said, hey, gotcha, I'm going to leak this to the world. And Kyle preemptively resigns from Turning Point to prevent, big fallout or probably this from becoming some kind of a liability. I imagine he probably told Charlie Kirk and they, saw that he was on his way out and then they leaked it. But there must be a penalty. There can be no excuses for this, right? And beyond that, it doesn't even seem like he's sorry. And that's the funny thing either, is when I made my comments, by the way, the comments were totally legit. It's not like I said, I hate black people. I said, I'm against interracial relationships, and yeah, Jewish people are kind of out to get me, which was borne out to be 100% correct. What did I say on tape? Jewish people are out to get me. And who made sure that this leaked tape made its way to Twitter to 1 million people and, try to get me fired? Oh, it happened to be a cadre of Jewish right-wing celebrities. Wow, what a coincidence. It's almost like I was 100% right. But so those are my comments. What were the comments made by Kyle Kashuv? It was straight up racial slurs, straight up animosity, racial hatred against black people. And this reveals something kind of curious about the alt-right and about all these people in general. Everything that they say about us is totally true about them. For all that it's worth, for what it's worth, I guess you could say, we're called white supremacists, white nationalists, all this other stuff. Have I ever come on the show and preached unironic or even ironic or even joking racial hatred against anybody? Never. And even when I went to Iowa State University, I gave my speech to basically 80% of the audience was Black Lives Matter, and probably 70% of the audience was actually black. And did I shy away? Did I preach racial animus? I gave them my speech. I said exactly what I was going to say to the audience of college Republicans that I was expecting. Did I shy away from my talking points? I respect black people enough to tell them my views. And the views are not white people are better or we don't like you. The actual view is people are different. People will probably be better off living in different countries, but nowhere in this message is hatred or actual animosity. You do see a lot of this from the Turning Point USA people, which to me is fascinating. And like I said, this is not the first time. This is Kyle Kashuv tweeting out about N-words, N-word jokes, we got to protect women from N-words and this kind of stuff. But it's all kinds of other people from Turning Point USA. This is from an article by the Huffington Post. You had Riley Grizzer, who led the group's University of Nevada, Las Vegas chapter, who was removed from Turning Point after a video surfaced of him declaring white power and saying racist slurs. Okay, we've never said anything like that on the show. Former National Field Director Crystal Clanton, who once texted a fellow Turning Point employee, quote, And this is a quote. She says, I hate black people. Like, F them all. I hate blacks. End of story. Okay? Okay? This is a quote from a Turning Point field director. She gets fired and replaced by Shiley Grumman, who tweeted in 2013, all I get is N-word penis, basically. And that's just the beginning of a lot of them. So Crystal Clanton is fired for saying, I hate black people. I hate all of them. Seriously, all of them. Her replacement uses the N-word, pretty casually. It says, meanwhile, Turning Point Midwest Regional Manager Timon Prax, all these names are like white people names. Like I said, glad I'm an American ethnic. That's why I got a name like Nicholas as opposed to Timon or Bryden. Bryden. I know Bryden. Or like Braylon or, something like that. White people be like Braylon. But Timon Prax, Crystal Clanton. Okay. Timon Prax was allegedly forced to leave about a month ago, according to our activist source. It was over his use of bigoted language in tweets and texts. Prax, whose Twitter account has been suspended, was worse in text messages, according to the source. Quote, he used the N-word with the hard R nonstop. N-word with the hard R. Made fun of black people and referred to them as slaves and made fun of the mentally disabled, said the source, who shared several screenshots with Huffington Post on the condition that we not publish them. So there you go. There's like 5 examples in 1 year of high-level Turning Point USA, celebrities, managers, directors, who have all been outed as saying things far worse than things that I've ever said. And all this says is this. Are we offended by racially charged language? I'm not offended by that. I'm not offended by, words. And if people are making jokes, I'm not offended by that. What's offensive is, again, the double standard. The virtue signaling of this kind of stuff is what is used as a bludgeon every single time to take out the authentic and legitimate reactionary right. This is what Ben Shapiro and Bill Kristol and Brett Stevens and all these basically Jewish people and a lot of others as well, I guess Anglos to some extent, Angloids and atheists and others, but this conservative movement, it's no secret who they are. They use virtue signaling about this kind of stuff to bludgeon to death people like Pat Buchanan, people like Ann Coulter and Darren Beattie and people like myself. That is always the tool. It's, we're actually right-wing, and they're the racist right. They're the neo-Nazis. The Confederate monuments have to go down, and the people at Charlottesville have to be destroyed, and the alt-right is the menace. But you find that the same kind of racial animus or racial hatred that they accuse us of is actually going on their side in far worse terms. And typically, I find that people who are on the inside, people who are in the Beltway, actually are the people that actually have racial hatred. This movement that I'm a part of or trying to promote is never about racial hatred. And this because the people that come on the show all the time are from all kinds of different racial groups. And who am I talking to about this all day? Ali. Ali Alexander is half black, half Arab. And we joke around, and it kind of actually says something about race relations in America as well. I think this is something that... what's the philosopher Slavoj Žižek said, and it's not a new sentiment, that joking about race and acknowledging race and even making racist jokes or even using racialized terms is actually good for bonding between the races. It's actually a form of levity. It's actually a source where people can get along. And it's funny because people who are honest about things like that, people like us, who are willing to say, here are the facts, and here's some jokes, and here's whatever. We are actually the people that don't harbor any resentment. We are actually the people that can get along just fine because it's based on mutual respect for people. But typically you find the people that are very cautious. We don't want to say that word, don't want to make that joke. They make it a point to pander to these people, and we got to make a black leadership summit and all this stuff. I don't think it's any surprise that that's where you find people using the N-word and saying things like, yeah, I hate all this group of people. It's no surprise. So Turning Point USA is canceled. Like I said, they're far too extreme for me. We get heat for a lot of things on the show. We get called racist, white supremacist. We get called all the terms, and they blame us for white nationalism. Seems like it's all with these characters, right? And I think we should go after Kyle Kashuv. A lot of people in my replies the other day when I was talking about this saying, we're really going to ruin this kid's life. He's a teenager, and, we're setting a bad precedent, and blah, blah, blah. Look, you signed up. You wanted to be Ben Shapiro's protege. You wanted to be in on the controlled opposition racket of you-know-who's and Charlie Kirk and all that. Okay, this is the life you chose. You made the wrong choice, and that's what happens, When anybody else, take your pick, and anybody who went to Charlottesville, myself, or anybody in this movement who has gotten doxxed or has had difficulty, I'm sure many people can share stories like this. We don't get, big-time Jewish Republican donors to come and save the day and talk about how, oh, you're so sorry, and we need to, this is a teachable moment, and all that other stuff. So, maybe it's time for a little reality for these people. It's time for a taste of their own medicine. So that's Kyle Kashuv. I guess we'll see what happens. But, I guess maybe that's also just karma. You build your career off of, dead people. You build your career, sort of morbid, right? You build your career off of people being murdered and killed, and suddenly you're some kind of political activist. Maybe it's a little bit of karma coming to bite you back in the butt, right? So that's Kyle, but we're going to move on to a more serious topic, a little bit more pertinent to the national news, more current events type stuff. Some developments out of Iran and Syria, a little bit more substantive. But I do think the Kyle Kashuv thing is important. Important to point out the double standards and exactly the kind of virtue signaling that is used against us. Because it's so sickening. That's exactly what they do to us. The real racists, the real anti-Semites, the real so-and-so, we have to go after. But we're real conservatives. Don't worry about it. Yeah, okay. Okay, Kyle Kashuv, right? That name, I hear it like echoing in this room. But anyway, we're going to take a look at Iran and Syria. Like I said, some pretty troubling developments here. We'll start with Iran. So like I said at the top of the show, this is reported from Fox News. They discovered a land bridge, basically a border crossing. It says, quote, new satellite images indicate Iran is building a border crossing at the Syrian-Iraqi border, which would open up a coveted land route from Iran to Lebanon, according to Western intelligence sources. The border crossing would enable Iran to maintain land access in Syria, Beirut, and the Mediterranean Sea. Regional and Western sources said the Iranians are planning to use this new route for smuggling operations, including trafficking weapons and oil, to avoid the looming U.S. sanctions. Without Syrian or Iraqi supervision, Iran and its allies would have an unprecedented advantage in transferring whatever they wish, experts say. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, in an interview Thursday with Fox and Friends, spoke about the sanctions and said, quote, there's a long history of Iranian terror that long predates our sanctions efforts. So this isn't just about sanctions. This is about the nature of this theocratic regime, these kleptocrats in Tehran. We're determined to push back. Now, for starters, you just have to point out the utter hypocrisy, the utter absurdity of these military-industrial people talking in these terms, kleptocrats, theocratic regime. It's just, how do people not just laugh in Mike Pompeo's face when he says things like this? I legitimately think he should be laughed out of the room when they say, well, we're not sanctioning Iran because of terror or whatever. We're sanctioning them because it's a theocratic, kleptocratic regime. First of all these nonsensical terms, like Rubio calling Putin a kleptocratic gangster or whatever, kleptocracy. Hey, newsflash, every government in the world is a kleptocracy. Really? Kleptocracy meaning it's a government based on stealing. Klepto is a Latin root for stealing, I guess. They say Venezuela is a kleptocracy. Iran is a kleptocracy. What country are we living in? Do you live in a different country than we do? What do you think the United States of America is? How do they get $4 trillion in tax revenue? Do you think they get it by, everybody gives a voluntary contribution? And who do they take it from? Do they take it from Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos, or do they take it from the working class and the middle class? Iran is a kleptocracy. Yeah, and I'm paying a quarter of my income in taxes. So what does that make you then, Mike Pompeo, right? And then the theocratic business. Because then you understand the double standard applies in two ways. It's a kleptocratic theocracy. Didn't we just do a $600 billion arms deal with Saudi Arabia? What else could you describe Saudi Arabia as other than a kleptocratic theocracy? Or Qatar, or the United Arab Emirates, or any country for that matter. It's a kleptocratic theocracy. Please, give me a break, So that's the only reason I read that quote. It's not even pertinent to the land bridge, but it's just like, barf, with these military and diplomatic type people, how absurd it is, But anyway, this is what they say about Iran. They're building this route. It's going to open up Syria, Lebanon, and the Mediterranean Sea to Iran. And of course, the concern is two predominant concerns. I guess three technically, but two classes. The first concern is that Iran is going to use this route to smuggle oil out of Iran. The big deal here, why things have been escalating and tensions have been going up in the past couple of weeks, is because President Trump terminated the waivers that were given to China and other countries who bought Iranian oil to continue to buy Iranian oil without facing sanctions. So we had these sanctions waivers. We suspended them, I think it was last week or a couple of weeks ago. And so now the fear is Iran is rebuilding this border crossing, which had been destroyed, so that they can get their oil out to the Mediterranean Sea or to Syria, and then they can export that elsewhere and continue their oil trade. And their oil exports have gone from, I think it's like 2.5 million barrels per day to like 0.5. I think it's million or billion. I remember the numbers, not so much the rest, right? So their oil exports have been substantially cut. That's one concern. The other concern is that through this border crossing, they're going to send weapons, militias, things like that into Syria, where they can change the outcome on the ground in Syria, and they can not only prop up the Assad regime, but also sort of influence Syrian politics. The far greater concern is not in Syria. The greater concern, which animates our foreign policy establishment, is that Iran will be able to send supplies, militia, weapons to Lebanon, to Beirut. And why is that our concern? Well, because Lebanon and Beirut is on the northern border of Israel. And so if you have all these munitions and supplies going to Hezbollah, or going into the West Bank, well, then that becomes Israel's problem. And when Iran becomes Israel's problem, Iran becomes our problem, because that's the way it works, baby. So that's the fear. That's fear number one. That's development number one. The other development, this is from a couple of days ago, actually, is that we're going to start deploying troops. This is from Fox News. It says, quote, according to multiple reports, the Pentagon will brief Trump administration officials Thursday on a plan to increase America's troop presence in the region. It's unclear exactly how many service members might be deployed. The reports put the number somewhere between 5,000 and 10,000. Of course, they won't go anywhere unless Trump approves the plan, which is still an unclear outcome. Acting Defense Secretary Patrick Shanahan denies that the Pentagon is making these plans. He says there is no 10,000, there's no 5,000. Numbers get floated out there, and you've got lots of good sources of information. What I'm telling you is, those sources right now aren't feeding you right information. As soon as anything changes, I'll let you know. So in my estimation, in my opinion, like I said, I could sit here and give you the baby take, okay? I could sit here and I could be Tucker Carlson, and I could give you the look, or I could be any other pundit and say, war in Iran is a bad idea, just like war in Iraq. Remember when Donald Trump tweeted in 2012 and he said, and what is he going to delete that one now? And he's George Bush number 3 and da-da-da. Very tedious, very repetitive, very, what is the word? What is the word? What am I thinking of? Very monotonous. We could give you the baby take, and we could go through why an intervention is the right way, and I agree with all that. But the way that I read this, and I'm a smart person, okay? The way I read this and these developments is, it's a warning signal to Iran. It's a red flag to Iran. It's saying, hey, Iran, stop what you're doing, or else we've got these satellite images, and we're going to send 10,000 troops to the region, and, things are going to happen unless you comply with us, unless you send a diplomatic envoy, or, there's some kind of a summit, or you stop selling your oil, you recommit to having some kind of a deal like North Korea. That's all I see happening here. Because 5,000 to 10,000 troops, as an example, does this dramatically change anything? No, it doesn't. So for anybody that's saying, what? I thought we were pulling out of the region. Yeah, it's sort of a betrayal of the promise. The promise in the campaign was we're going to end the war in Iraq, end the war in Afghanistan. And the opposite has happened. We've had a troop surge in Afghanistan. We're now up to like 17,500 troops there. Whereas like 14,000 or thereabouts a couple of years ago. So we've had a troop surge in Afghanistan. We have more troops in Syria that are remaining. Iraq, we've winded down the personnel there, but we basically compensated by increasing it in Afghanistan. So does introducing 10,000 troops, hypothetically, is that a betrayal of the promise? Is that against what was promised and, non-intervention, pulling people out? Yeah, no doubt. It's the opposite. Now, that said, the war in Iraq was 200,000 ground troops, okay? A war in Iran would require 250,000 ground troops. So does adding 5,000 to 10,000 troops, or talking about adding 5,000 to 10,000 troops, does that actually change the calculus on the ground in a dramatic fashion? No, it doesn't. So if it happens, if it doesn't happen, are we thrilled about that? Are we pleased with this? No, it shouldn't happen. But that said, if we're trying to read what this really is this about invasion? Is this about kinetic action against Iran? Or is this yet another gesture to prove to Iran that we really mean business when it comes to the nuclear program? It's the same with the aircraft carrier. We have like 17 aircraft carriers. People are concerned that there are 2 somewhere in the Mediterranean Sea, as if this is laying the groundwork. There's 2, oh my God, there's 2 carriers in the Mediterranean, and that's unusual. When we're thinking about what a ground war would look like, what that would entail, it's major preparation, it's major investment, it's major commitment, major troop movements, major movements of vessels and things like that. Believe me, you would hear about it. I think people would sort of get the picture. So not that it's not a possibility. We always maintain and we always are saying that it's a possibility. It's within the realm of possibility, but is it likely? Is it probable? Does Donald Trump saying there's this border crossing, 10,000 troops, other things, does that mean we're guaranteed there's going to be another war? We're going to go in there. We're going to do regime change? Not at all. Not even close. I would wait a little bit to get concerned. The other development is on Syria. Another chemical attack. This is from CNN. It says, quote, the U.S. State Department issued a warning to the government of Bashar al-Assad in Syria on Tuesday, saying the U.S. is closely watching the regime's military operations against a rebel enclave in northwest Syria and is looking into allegations that Assad's troops have used chemical weapons in recent days. According to a State Department spokesperson, they say, quote, unfortunately, we continue to see signs that the Assad regime may be renewing its use of chemical weapons, including an alleged chlorine attack in northwest Syria on the morning of May 19th. It's another ridiculous claim. This has been said literally like 5 times now. This has happened 5 times or 4 or 5 times. This is the 5th time, I believe, since Trump got into office that we see the reports about chemical weapons attacks. And there's nothing really new to say about it outside of, it's totally unlikely that Assad would do something like this. It has never been confirmed that Assad has done something like this. In any event, if there were chemical weapons used, it was actually used by the rebels or used by ISIS or some other group, and on and on and on. We've seen this, like I said, many, many times over the course of this show where we've laid out why it's absurd that Bashar al-Assad would use chemical weapons, or anything like that. But in my opinion, this is, again, like the border crossing discovery or like the 10,000 troop surge or the carriers in the Mediterranean. This is yet another gesture. This is yet another way of signaling to Iran that you should probably comply with what we're suggesting. And that's all that is. And if you paid attention even to the rhetoric out of the White House, as we've been covering pretty extensively for the past couple of weeks, the rhetoric has been there's this inertia towards war, and we'll go to war if we have to, and Iran would get destroyed in a war, and they're making a big mistake, but I don't really want to go to war. I don't really want to go to war, and actually I prefer economic war. And actually, I don't want to go to war because that betrays my campaign promises. And I say this in an interview, and this has been said in leaks and so on. So it seems to me that this is the same approach that was taken with North Korea. And people have pointed out, and they're right, that Iran is different than North Korea. Oh, thank you, hello, Captain Obvious. North Korea is different than Iran for a variety of reasons, the countries, but also the situation. The Israel lobby was never lobbying us to go to war with North Korea. Nevertheless, that doesn't negate the fact that the military-industrial complex wanted us to go to war with North Korea. That does not negate the fact that John Bolton was the national security advisor at the time of the summit. Mike Pompeo was the Secretary of State at the time of the summit, and actually, Nikki Haley was the UN ambassador at the time of the North Korea summit. So to pretend that just because the Israel lobby isn't trying to get us into war with North Korea doesn't mean that there's not inertia to go to war with North Korea. There was, and there was pressure. But it seems to me that we look at this process, we look at what has gone on, the same tactics, the same gambits, the same rhetoric, the same style that was applied with North Korea, and look at the outcome is being applied to Iran. And actually, it was applied to Venezuela a few weeks ago. And I looked at Venezuela the same way that I looked at North Korea. When there was all this bellicose rhetoric and carrier strike groups and all that, going into the Sea of Japan and rhetoric against North Korea, I was saying, well, here's the rational case for war with North Korea. Here's why a war with North Korea would technically be in our interest. Well, it's in our self-interest because it's nuclear non-proliferation and blah, blah, blah. And I said, I don't think war is the best option, and I'm not necessarily saying I'm for a war, but here's why you can justify the war in North Korea. And I said the same thing for Venezuela. I said, Venezuela, if we could put our finger on the scale and topple the Maduro regime and replace it with a U.S.-friendly regime, then that would be beneficial. If all we had to do is give moral support, or light arms trafficking to the rebels, then what's the big deal? It's not like Libya, it's not like these other countries and so on. But it seems like when we saw in Venezuela a few weeks ago, the same principle was applied. Sending the carrier groups, the rhetoric, saying Maduro better get out and we support the rebels, and even a small amount of light arms trafficking and so on. And what was the result? The rebellion failed, but now you're having peace talks in Norway between the Maduro regime and Guaido, the resistance. So it seems like this has been the Trump doctrine, using economic power, using what Hillary Clinton called smart power. Actually, Trump is applying it in a much better way. Having a massive military, rebuilding the military, perhaps even using the military in some cases like the Syria strikes, but ultimately the policy is just leaning on countries and trying to get them to do what we want. Leaning on them using diplomatic or economic or financial measures, the sanctions, United Nations type stuff. And we lean on them, we scare them, we intimidate them. And if they go our way, then the world's better off. And if they don't, well, then they're just poor. and then they're just poor. They just don't get to take part in this, global homo usury system, and they're all poor and they don't eat. Which is a fine foreign policy. Much better than the George W. Bush foreign policy. Much better than the marginally better than the Obama foreign policy. So I look at the developments in Iran, I look at the developments in Syria, and that's what I see. So if everybody's, people are getting nervous, they're clamoring, they're going to their nuclear bunker. I remember one critic of this show, back when the Syria strikes were happening, I forget who it was, one of these Wignats, who was a harsh critic, saying, "Trust the plan, 4D chess. Nick Fuentes says we're not going to war in Syria, but I'm not so sure. That's just four-dimensional. He's this fan of Dotard Blumph, and he'll agree with anything Donald Trump says." And this guy literally was instructing his listeners to go to their bunkers. Literally went into his own bunker and locked the doors and had his beans and everything. So if that's you, okay. If that's you, and it's like that meme where they're getting hanged, and it's like, first time. This is the first time the Trump regime or the Trump administration has talked about chemical weapons in Syria. Okay, relax, everybody. I think there's a lot more that has to go wrong before we start to get concerned, before we start, going into the bunker, getting scared that we're going to war. It seems to me like all these things, the troops, the border crossing, the chemical weapons in Syria, this is all signaling to the Iranian regime that we're super serious. It's super serious this time. You better not do the nuclear weapons. You better comply with our regulations or non-proliferation regime, or else the consequences will be severe. And so we'll see what happens. It could escalate, and it also could very well de-escalate. But, wait and see approach. We'll have to watch and find out what happens next. But that's our foreign policy. It looks like that's going to do it. So we'll take a look at our super chats, and we'll see what you guys are saying, because we're getting up to that mark. And we'll take a look. We'll hear from what do the unwashed masses have to say today. I'm sure it's very interesting. Jonathan and Furnings says, "How much makeup are you wearing in your YouTube profile picture?" I'm not wearing any makeup, but it was edited. People see a digital photograph that is slightly edited, and they're like, "You're wearing makeup." Okay, I think you're a baby boomer. Some baby boomer's like, "How much makeup are you wearing in that edited picture, Sonny?" It's a little thing called digital editing. But the original, it's still not much different from the original. I think they just cleaned it up, changed the lighting a little bit. But anyway, retard BTFO. Sweaty Cheese Vic Berger says, "Nick, if one Jewish joke is too far for the battalion, but saying the N-word 50 times is not, how many N-words equals one Jewish joke? 60, 600, 6 million? Yeah, probably somewhere in the ballpark of 6 million, thereabout. Actually, let me think. Let me do the math right. 50 to 1 is the ratio. Then maybe it's more like 200 to 300,000 times, offensive. Yeah, but it just goes to show a lot of my black friends are now finding out that, hey, maybe there's a double standard here. It's kind of funny. Well, I can't share that story. I was told not to, so I'm not going to share it. I'm not going to share that story, but some of my friends are finding out that there is a double standard. Some people are a little bit more offended about the Holocaust and Jewish jokes than they are about anti-black racism. And it's, it's something everybody has known about. Everybody who is on the right side of history has known about. But some of my more basic friends are coming to understand this. Pretty funny. Intergalactic Liebenstrom says, "Me and my friends are making a board game for a school project, and we made you one of the player cards. The fact that you liked our picture of the card on Twitter made our day." Yeah, I saw that. Very good drawing. Glad to hear it. Wow, that warms my heart. I'm making the youth's day. A couple of kids Wow. Well, I'm glad. You'll have to post a picture of it once it's all finished, and maybe I'll throw you a retweet. Maybe I'll throw a retweet your way. Little clouts, little clout from your old uncle, your old basement red-pilled uncle. But that's good to hear. Sadcast says, is it wrong to make a distinction between poo-poo and pee-pee? They all come from the same place, just like we all come from Africa. Thanks for that. Glenn C. says, what's the rundown on Andrew Pollock? His daughter was actually killed in Florida, and he seems bought now, too. Seemed genuine while meeting Trump. WTF. Which one is Andrew Pollock? Is he, what is he, Parkland? I don't know anything about him. Oh, I guess he was a father of the victim, and he was there with gun rights legislation. I don't know anything about Pollock, so I don't know what the deal is. Neon Yahtzee says, ever heard of the Folk Nation? It's a gang alliance in Chicago that uses the Star of the Chosen Ones, as well as a satanic symbolism. Really makes you think. Well, the Star of David is satanic symbolism, if you want to know the truth. How could it not be? 6 points, 6 triangles, it's a hexagon in the middle. Come on, what are you? You're kind of a baby if you don't see that already. People think the pentagram is the most satanic one. How about a shape that is literally the mark of the beast? And it has no basis in the Bible. The Star of David. This is not the symbol of David. So in my humble opinion, look, is part of my religion, as part of my Christian beliefs, I think the Star of David is a satanic symbol. But, maybe you need, a Moloch symbol as well. So it's 2 symbols, right? Yeah, it really makes you think. It's no surprise, right? T-Cat says, Nick, did you see Destiny debate a psychic where Tiny claims that people are too stupid to make choices for themselves? When he debates you, claims people should be allowed to make stupid choices. Gotta love liberalism. Yeah, well, that's really what's fundamental is, I remember in 2016, this was part of my conversion from being a libertarian to a conservative. I remember one day I was so beside myself. I was so angry. I was like, why do people not vote for libertarians? They're so uneducated, and they don't know what's good for them, and they are going to get exactly what they deserve. Because I was on this like ANCAP, totally individualist libertarianism train, and I was so frustrated that Donald Trump was ascendant in the Republican Party. I wanted it to be Rand Paul. I wanted it to be Ted Cruz, Or even I looked at in my local village, something was going on, and I sat in on the municipal government meetings, and there was one particular episode where we were going to get a big grant from the federal government or something to fix a road. I forget what was going on, but basically we were going to get, our village was going to get big money to fix the roads. And we had started this road paving project, and we just got this big grant, but we turned it down because one of the contingencies of getting the grant was that you would have to have it so that parking was limited to one side or something like that. And all these people from that one street where the rules would have changed came out, and they were like, well, if they change the parking rules, then that would make cars go faster, and that would make it more dangerous, and blah, blah, blah. So in short, because all these people came out, because they would be affected on their one street, we didn't take like this huge grant, and our village is like $1 million in debt. And so there was that, there was the election, and I was like, people are not doing what's in their interest. They deserve everything that's coming to them. And then I realized, hey, wait a second. We can't expect anything from people. People need to be led. Society must be hierarchical. Yeah, people really shouldn't be making choices for themselves, or at least they shouldn't be making choices that are not, heavily structured based on the society. The problem is that we created this society where it's like you can do anything. Well, and we find out that there's really not so much anybody can do. People really don't get creative with their options. What is so precious about this libertine absolute freedom that we have? So that you can go to college in another state, and then you can get some job selling like insurance in another state. And then if you want, you can like go clubbing or like see a movie. What are you really doing with your freedom? The most I see people doing with their freedom, the most creative, heterodox uses of the freedom, you see in Vice magazine. It's people doing different drugs in different countries and being different forms of homosexual. That's really, that's what people are doing with their freedom. It's like we kind of know what is good for people. We kind of know There's really only so many options for most people, and it's probably better if we just do what's worked. You know, if you're a baker, you're a butcher, you have your family tradition, whatever, and maybe there's political liberty within that or economic liberty within certain constraints, but basically there should just be tracks, and you pick a track, and that's your track. You know, you pick your thing, and that's it. We even talked about this in college, and I was surprised, because college is supposed to be blue pill, but we were talking about Plato's Republic. They talked about how democracy is, paralyzing, it's too much choice, and things like that. And so our professor said, well, what should be choice? Should it be you have 20 different kinds of shampoo and 20 different kinds of chips and whatever? Or should it be you have 2 really high-quality options and you just pick one of the high-quality options? Or should it be you have a million, crazy options? It should probably be the former. So in short, yeah, that's the problem with liberalism. It's totally wrong. All this, people should be free to make choices. We should trust them with choices. Maybe not. Maybe we should trust one wise ruler to make the big and tough decisions, right? So it's all nonsense, all that individualism crap. And clearly, I guess Destiny knows it. And Destiny acts like it. Destiny, I'm sure, believes he's smarter than everybody. Destiny, I'm sure, believes he's got it all figured out, He's a Redditor video game streamer, so he's got it all figured out. He's got a high verbal IQ. He, I'm sure, believes he's smarter than most people. So it's always ironic when you see that. Audio Chronic says, what is PP? What is poo-poo? Wonderful. Sam Day says, did you cancel because you saw McDonald's rainbow fries? I didn't see that at all. What is that? McDonald's has rainbow fries now? Looks like this is old. 2017? Excuse me, or is it new? Yeah, the latest I see is 2017. I don't see anything from recently, but I guess they got Pride fries. Cringe, yikes department. Still, McDonald's seems to be the one that's the least paused, honestly, because Burger King, this is not, I've been saying for a long time Burger King is paused, and it only took the milkshake thing for people to realize it, but they've been paused forever. They were doing ads at one point, these really woke ads about the gender pay gap and about environmentalism, where people would go in and they would order and they get like pranked. The people behind the counter would be like, you buy a hamburger and you're a woman, you get the woman burger. I forget what, it was some stupid like woke video. You could look it up on YouTube. And I said, you know what, I'm done with Burger King. I'm not eating at Burger King anymore. So McDonald's, I guess everybody's paused a little bit, but McDonald's seems to be the least paused. So I'm not going to, is that a cope? Perhaps. But I like the Big Mac. I'm going to stop eating the Big Mac because I got a rainbow fry 2 years ago. Come on, let a man enjoy his fries. John Q. Public says, when it comes to your personal terms of service, how do you rank the following? The U.S. Constitution, the YouTube terms of service, and the 10 Commandments. Pulls out a pencil and notepad, Randall from Recess style. Good question. Oh, it'd go YouTube terms of service, Constitution, 10 Commandments, in that order, absolutely. I think YouTube really figured it out. I think they really hit the nail on the head when they talked about anti-hatred and things like that. I think that definitely conforms to my ethical terms of service. CG says, hey, big guy, what are some books you would recommend? The Nose Itch Department book. Books I would recommend, my favorite question that I answer probably every week. I don't know, man. I don't know. Books really aren't going to help you out. I'm really kind of the book meme. It's like, yeah, read books, sure. I guess it's a good thing to read books, but it's not like essential. The book thing is a meme. I got to tell you, everything's a meme. Everything's a meme. Prepping, working out, reading books, whatever. It's all kind of a meme. We learn in the Bible that you take care of your soul, you feed your soul, and God takes care of the rest. I'm a believer in that lately. I'm really on this sort of Buddhist plane lately, Buddhist, Christian, just sort of esoteric, I'm on a higher plane lately, where I'm saying, what really matters? What really matters when it comes down to it? People saying self-improvement, gains, book learning, knowledge, things like that. I think it matters you're being a good person, you're praying, you're going to church, things like that, you get along. So, book recommendations. Book recommendations. People constantly want to make themselves more smarter by reading books. I don't know, dude. Bowling Alone by Robert Putnam. Duh. Culture of Critique. Oh, I'm joking. I'm only busting your chops. If you ever read the Bible, go for that. I don't know. What's on my bookshelf? What have I been reading lately? Who Are We by Sam Huntington. That's always essential. Yeah, Bowling Alone Doesn't Hurt. Sure. Coming Apart by Charles Murray. That's a good one. I don't know, man. I don't know. I feel like I'm really anti-books lately. But you paid $20 for a super chat. I guess I got to give you a good answer. For those that don't know, I'm looking at my bookshelf right now, trying to discern what are good books to recommend. Dawn to Decadence by Barzun. That's a good one about history. You could read... What's a good one I read recently? I don't know. So those are some starters. Those are good ones to get you started out. Man in Search of a... What is it? What is the one by Jung that I read? About the soul, is it? Carl Jung, Soul. Totally forget the book. Modern Man in Search of a Soul. That's what it is. I got it confused with Modern Man's Search for Meaning or whatever, the other book. So that's a good one. Coming Anarchy. I always recommend that one by Kaplan. World Order by Kissinger. That's a good one. So these are some good books. These are some starters. Reflections on the Revolution in France by Burke. That's a good one. So those are some starters. I hope that'll get you started. I hope that's sufficient. Rugal says the prodigal son returns. It was a dark 24 hours. Is that how you pronounce that? I don't know how to pronounce that. Prodigal, I think, is how you pronounce it. Prodigal son or prodigal. I don't know how it's pronounced. I read too much. Now I'm being hypocritical. I only know because I read the word. But yeah, I'm back. Yeah, I'm thinking I'm back. Joshua Larson says the real third position is mustachism. Mustachism. Oh, I like that. Got to get the mustache, maybe. Should I grow a mustache? Should I grow a mustache? Type M in chat if I should grow a mustache. I don't want to because I feel like, here's the thing. If I grow it out, it will look bad for a long time before it looks good, and it might never look good. I might be too young to grow a full and complete mustache. So I don't want to look bad for a month or whatever, 6 weeks, and then it doesn't even look like a good mustache. It just look like, some teenager going through puberty, So I don't know. I'm conflicted. I feel like it would be... I do like the mustache. I do think it's a good look, but I don't know if it would be a good look on me at the moment. But we'll see. Dan D, maybe I'll take a month off. I've been thinking about that for a long time. Take a month off. Focus on me. Focus on, as if I don't do that all the time. But really focus on getting healthy, getting away from the city, getting away from all the noise. Maybe, I don't know, devoting myself to some kind of a discipline, and then growing out the mustache, right? Going somewhere and getting away from it all, getting a different perspective. Then I would grow the mustache, I think. But that'll come later. That'll come down the line. Dan D says, thanks, bro. Keep up the good fight. Hey, thanks, man. I will. Rugal says, take care of your health first. Demands won't end. Yeah, you're right. It's true. I'll take care of my health. No worries there. I'm taking care of myself. I'm a very healthy guy, You know me. I'm always taking care. David Spurner says, them, Wakanda time. Me, an intellectual. Knicker time. Hell yeah. Knicker time. Approximately 7 o'clock Central. Ira Science says, thoughts on epistocracy, a.k.a. knowledge-based voting? No. Knowledge-based voting. Who do you think would be voting? It'd be a bunch of Democrats. It'd be a bunch of liberal Democrats because they're all college-educated. So, no, I'm basically against that. I'm just against voting in general. I think voting should be more based on wisdom, reflected in... Really, democracy is just such a farce. The whole thing, the whole idea of having people vote, to me, is just sort of silly. It's such a degenerated form of government. So I know people are into that. That's an idea I hear tossed around. What if there was a test? Number one, who makes the test? That's part of the problem. But number two, I think you'll find that a lot of the people that end up passing on the test are going to be people that are liberal elites. I don't even know if that would change anything so much. So I don't know that would bar some demographics from voting. Maybe not a totally bad idea. But I feel like eventually, just like everything else, would get watered down and be pointless. The problem is voting. The problem is not, I think at the end of the day, the problem is the vote itself. Mass universal suffrage itself, right? So the qualification should be entirely different. II says, Wignats say you can't infiltrate the GOP, but look at the extremist cell called Turning Point USA, Wignats VTFO. Well, it's just so funny. The Wignats are obsessed. They're obsessed with me. That's all they talk about these days. You know, I said at the beginning of 2019, I said, we're not going to talk about them because, like, they're over. They're done. You know, I almost single-handedly won the optics war. And look, there were some people, look, we got to give credit where it's due. There were other people as well, okay? There were other people that were fighting the good fight. You know, Ricky Vaughn, Patrick Casey. There are a lot of people fighting. But, you know, let's not delude ourselves. Who was doing all the heavy lifting on America First? Who was taking the slings and arrows from the Wignats? It was me. Who is the one that they all talk about still? It was me. You know? So after I won the optics war, you know, back a little bit sore. Why do I get all these tension headaches? Turns out it's because I have the whole movement on my back right now, right? Doctor, I've been suffering from these headaches ever since I took the whole white race movement on my back. It's just been killing me, right? But so after I won the optics war, after I completely defeated all the leaders and everybody from that side, they lay in ashes, a heaping ruin. I said, we're not going to talk about them because they're irrelevant. They're irrelevant. What we have to focus on now is Turning Point, Ben Shapiro, people like that. Nevertheless, the Wignats are just obsessed. If you look, there's like a whole parallel Twitter that's like orders of magnitude smaller than even my Twitter account. But all the posting is about, it's like boomers making memes by like doing, when you trim something in like Microsoft Images or whatever and putting it on things. It's them making fun of me and Patrick Casey, talking about infiltrating the GOP. And it just belies how foolish they are. I mean, they don't even understand what we're talking about, you know, infiltrating the GOP. What a caricature of what we actually talk about on the show, right? But a funny joke nonetheless about Turning Point being an extremist cell. Billy says, Krasenstein Bros perma-banned from Twitter for using fake bot accounts and purchasing fake interactions to get their numbers up. Yeah, I saw that. You know, I never really... To me, the Krasenstein brothers, I never interacted with them. I never saw their content. I think I just blocked them like I do everybody else. So that's sort of a boomer thing to talk about the Krasensteins. That's like Jared Holt talks about them and, you know, the mainstream right-wing media talks about them. Who really cares about a couple of resistance goofuses, right? But still good. But still, you know, a victory nonetheless. SMC says, doing the Lord's work, Nick, done with gay liberal Protestant churches my mom goes to. I'm going to trad Catholic master race now. Hell yeah, big guy. Good to see you come around. Glad to hear it. You know, look, there are some fine Protestants out there. There are some good Protestant churches out there. But look, it's just not in communion with God. And it's so funny. Protestants will try to argue with me about Scripture. And it's like, wait a second, you know, you're arguing with me about the interpretation of Scripture. Gee, if only there were one totally reliable source that could adjudicate such differences, right? It would be kind of silly if God inspired such a complicated and long and historical work such as the Bible that's been interpreted in so many different ways. It would be kind of a faulty system if it was just up to everybody to interpret it for themselves. You know, I read the Bible this way, I read it that way. I think it means one thing, I think it means another. Sounds like a recipe for nothing but division and destruction and war and heresy and all the rest. If only there was one church, and in particular one man protected from error by God himself, who was set up to interpret the Bible, if only that were the case. Otherwise, we just have this impasse, or we have conflict, right? So it sort of belies the question itself. Well, Nick, your interpretation of Scripture is wrong. Actually, it's this way. Oh, says who? You? What if I disagree? You know, and then there's your problem. So anyway, but good to hear, big guy. Got to get into the Catholic Church. Jonathan says, Nick, did you check out Beyond Jordan? Have some Big Macs on me, big guy. God bless. What is Beyond Jordan? All these people talking about God knows what. Beyond Jordan. Oh, the Steve Anderson movie? No, I did not check that out. Sorry, I didn't check that one out. Jimbo says it's proven Assad never used chemical weapons before, sure, but this time he decided it would be a good idea to use it on them. Ignore the motive of other groups. Thank you. Yeah, that's what we said. All true. Alex Ware says a Scorpion King 2, Rise of a Warrior. Okay. Italian Pal says, hey, Nick, to what degree do you see white American as an authentic and rooted ethnic or ethnic-like identity? I see this as a potential point of disagreement between you and E. Michael Jones. Well, thank you for looking for points of disagreement between me and my guest tomorrow. I don't know. I guess white American is basically an assimilated ethnic identity at this point, from the standpoint of most people see themselves as basically, I'm a white mutt, basically. I'm white bread, whatever. So for the most part, I think it's basically just that's as much of an ethnic group as any other group. I don't see there's much distinction going on, except for if you see little enclaves where it's very specific, like, Serbs or a lot of Eastern Europeans tend to stick together. And for the most part, all these ethnic neighborhoods have been destroyed. So I think that at this point, you kind of do have this assimilated white ethnic identity. Now, is it authentic? Is it rooted? I think these are all relative terms and kind of silly. It is what it is. That's what people are at this point. And there is white culture. Can we say that it's highbrow like European culture? No, but there is a white culture, I think, that predominates in the suburbs or in the cities. So it's yuppie culture, it's suburb culture, it's white bread, WASP culture, whatever you want to call it. But I think that's basically legitimate at this point. So, but we're going to try and talk about different things with E. Michael Jones. I think he's rehashed that argument with a lot of different people. So, anyway, Zach Fisher says, D-class memo just dropped. What memo? Comrade Crunch said, hey, Nick, great show as always, man. Can't wait for the E. Michael Jones episode. The one he did with Faith Goldie was pretty good. Have you seen it? No, not yet. Alvin says, does this mean that all N-word passes are now revoked? No, you just can't use them when actually describing black people. You can use it in a funny, rebellious way, I think. But can you use it to describe an African-American individual? No, that would be highly racist. Comrade says, turning poop USA, pooping point USA. Poop USA. Thanks. NC Rid says, did you see Kyle saw the N-word? Yeah. Oh, see Kyle. Yeah, that's wonderful. Thanks. Klondell says, first they banned me from CPAC, then they disavowed me at IU. Yeah, I'm thinking I'm back. Yeah. Gatarian says, hello, Nick, big fan. I've been watching for a long time. What I wanted to ask you was after you... Okay, thanks so much. Ronald Glim says, Nick, please help me. I'm only attracted to Latinas. Does this mean I'm cringe and blue-pilled? Yes, it does, actually. Sorry to say, very blue-pilled take. Really Good Comic says, what was one of your most cringe political beliefs? I'll start. When I was 14, I was a big pro-choicer because I wanted this one girl to like me. Bra moment. That is for real, a bra moment. Yikes, dude. That's part of the problem. All these stupid roasties controlling men's minds with their coochie. That's what happens. That's what happens. People think it works. Well, the men set the tone. Typically, it's the other way around. A lot of times you'll find that men, because they want to get along with women, they'll adopt liberal political positions. So I see it happen all too often. All too often do I see this with the e-girls. But what is one of my most cringe political beliefs? Oh, I don't know. I don't think I really ever had very cringe, because even when I was a libertarian, I was in favor of the military, going out and doing what they have to do, killing communists, whatever. So my most cringe political position, I would probably say just general social liberalism, just being okay with drugs being legal and being okay with everything being legal so long as you don't harm somebody else. General libertarianism, I would say, would be my most cringe political belief. Maybe supporting the Iraq War. That was pretty cringe. I supported the Iraq War at one point. I used the same Christopher Hitchens argument. We authorized the war in 1999, and Saddam Hussein had broken the 4 things that the UN set out as, when you forfeit your sovereignty. And so that was pretty cringe. Okay, I'm just not going to read that. Illustratimable says, F censorship, my Twitter, whatever is locked for 7 days for calling a feminist pro-deather an oven dodger because she belongs in the kitchen. Well, that's kind of cringe, frankly. Kind of a cringe joke. I think he should have been suspended for being cringe, not for being, perceivably edgy. Prussian says, not looking chubby, big guy. You're actually looking kind of angular. Sharpen those cheekbones, fade the back and sides, and keep owning the neo-libs. Thanks. Hey, wow, thank you so much. NC Rich says, whoa there, big guy. Nicholas is not an ethnic name. What I mean is my parents are ethnics, so they name me something that is sensible and not ridiculous. That's what I meant by that. I said my parents are ethnics, so they chose a name like Nicholas, as opposed to a name like, Braylon or something like that. So I am grateful. I have friends in the South and they tell me the names that go on there, and it's like white people. We have to do better. We have to do better as a race. Come on. right? Medi Freddy says, these big TPUSA types expressing childish, pent-up bitterness reminds me of cucked guys who overcompensate by being predatory when they get a chance. Yeah, very true. That's what you see typically with the beta orbiter types. True, all true. Plant Nation says, Jordan Peterson gave a shout-out to Teddy Spaghetti. I believe that's what they call Vox Day, right? I don't know how he got that nickname, but I don't know where that comes from, but okay. Rianne says, when I was a kid, I was playing Minecraft in class, and it started raining in-game. When it started raining in real life, so I told the teacher. Great story, thanks. NA says, TPUSA can suppress Nick, but he will never capitulate. Exactly, that's right. That's right, we'll never capitulate to the you-know-who's at Turning Point. Right Wing Rage says, get E. Michael Jones on the show. Nick, oh, God wills it. Yeah, he's coming tomorrow. Temple Drake says, Fuentes is the epitome of the 1930s Hollywood gangster. James Cagney, Paul Mooney, Edward G. Robinson. Yeah, is that the impression you get? I don't know how I give off that vibe, but, I'll take it. Pretty cool guys. Pretty good company to keep. Sebastian Brandstedt says, does Cassie ever reply to your BTFOs on Twitter? No. I kind of partially like that. She won't block me, but she won't reply. I kind of like that because I know that she sees it because I ratio her every time. And I like that now she just has to live with this for the rest of her life. No matter how serious she takes herself, no matter how seriously anybody else takes her, whatever job she has, she's still going to get bullied on Twitter by me until the end of time, until we both expire or, until something happens, I guess, right? So she'll be an intern for Nikki Haley or, whatever. No matter what, she will still have an army of 50 Nickers in her mentions saying, thanks for creating Nick Fuentes or pee pee poo poo or, just calling her big head or, things like that. Hot dog windshield wiper. So that I get a big kick out of that. I get a big kick out of the fact that she must be fuming every time she sees us. Oh, Nick is at it again. I'm crazy, So I like it. I think it's fun. It's playful. It's playful banter. It's fun. Zoom says, watched the first John Wick last night, and I see why you like it so much. 2 hours straight of one man overpowered going off. Yeah, exactly. That's what I tell people. I like the genre of film, the genre of video game that I like the most is one guy, and he's armed, and he's more powerful than everybody else, and he just takes everybody out. It's my favorite. In film, in video games, Grand Theft Auto, Prototype, Infamous, games like this, it's one guy, and he's just maxed out. And instead of being like a superhero or anything or doing missions, you can just do whatever you want. You could just, can just go after people. And so, yeah, it's my favorite genre. But a fine film. John Wick, great film. Zoom says, do I look civilized to you? That's what I say. That's what I say to Ben Shapiro. When I go to CPAC and I see Will Chamberlain, we're civilized. This is Western civilization. And I'm like, do I look civilized to you? So true. So relatable. Relatable John Wick moments. Derpster says, us natural conservatives got to rise up and cast off these Angloids and these other peachy, cool arrows out of Congress. So true. Yeah, I agree. Time for the Castizos to rise up, replace the Angloids. Yeah, you see, Angloids, they were a problem in the United Kingdom. They're causing problems over here. Who delivered our country to, other interests? It was the Angloids, okay? This Angloid elite. They can't be trusted. They cannot be trusted. Let's see. Klondell says, Cutter Nick Swirlies, Kyle Kashuv, calls him gay, then shoves him in locker using facts and racist texts. Yeah, I should. I saw him at CPAC this year. I should have went after him in some form, but I didn't want to. I don't know. Didn't want to give him a hard time. Didn't want to get pulled up on by. I was outnumbered. I'll say that much by Kyle Kashuv and his types. But I should have given him a hard time. Maybe next year. Elizabeth Warren's family station wagon says, Nick, I'm in the process of choosing a law school. Any advice for a Nicker? No. How would I know? Why would people ask me that? How would I know anything about that? I didn't even graduate regular college. I know what law school you should go to. I don't even know you. I don't know anything about you. I don't know what grades you got. I don't know anything about law school. I never intended to become a lawyer. So no, I have no advice for you. I have no advice for you. My advice is save your money and figure it out for yourself. Make an informed decision for yourself. How's that? A little introvert says, people keep asking me if I'm interviewing E. Michael Jones, and I haven't really had an answer. But now, yeah, I think I'm interviewing E. Michael Jones. John Wick moments. Yeah, John Nick. Highly relatable. Sam says, you heard of Sticky's 617 on TikTok? He's a knicker. No, I'll have to check him out. I was just on TikTok the other day. And feeling like an old man. Stixy 617. I will check it out. I'm on TikTok the other day, and I just get depressed. Because I see all these younger men. I'm an old man. I'm becoming 21. No, I'm turning 17 this year. I'm 17 years old, and hopefully now Dad will start letting me drive the car, and I'm going to take the prettiest girl in school to the senior prom. I'm turning 17. I'm going to start learning how to skateboard. But it's true. I see all these youngsters on TikTok, and they're dancing and they're skateboarding and and they're having the time of their lives in high school, and I'm like, what am I doing? And here I am, wasting away in the America First studio, working. I've become a workaholic. I've lost touch. I've lost what it means to be an e-boy, So I'm thinking I'm going to have a midlife crisis. We're going to have a midlife crisis. We're going to get the black and white striped t-shirt, okay? I'm going to start rolling up my pants. I already got the Vans, the black Vans that they all wear. I don't know if I'll start painting my nails black. I think that's a little too far. But the chains, a beanie, something like that. Skateboarding, you're going to see me pretty soon. Skateboarding on TikTok, doing all kinds of dances, going to start taking dance classes. Because I'm still a young man. I can still do that, all right? I am still young and hip and fresh. And I can talk to them and relate to them. But I watch TikTok and I'm like, oh, time has gone by, Anyway, but yeah, in short, I'll check out the knicker that's on TikTok. I'll see his content. Jaundice says it genuinely hurt realizing Patrick Casey has half an inch on you. No, Obama's hands are just like that because he's so tall. Heartbreak department, he doesn't have a half inch on me. I'm taller than Patrick Casey. What are you talking about? If you look back at the picture, I'm taller than Patrick Casey. Look, me and Patrick Casey are fast friends. We like each other a lot. I think he's a great dude, very smart. But I am a little bit taller than him, okay? So just have to point that out. Look, nothing personal, okay? This is just, facts don't care about anybody's feelings on this matter. I am slightly taller than Patrick Casey. And, I'm 6'9". I think he's probably like 6'8.5". I think we're about in that range. So, but that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. But I am, don't lie to the people here. Don't try and misinform. I am slightly taller, so... And that's okay. That's fine. Shyster says, Nick, I had a dream that you got drunk and fell down a flight of stairs and disappeared. Care to explain yourself? Kind of a weird dream there. It's so weird to me when people say that I appear in their dreams and when I don't even know you. Do you know how weird that is to say to somebody? I don't even know you. You appeared in my dreams. You saying that is like, oh, my favorite content creator, who I have a crush on, and he's my role model, and he's so amazing. He appeared in my dream tonight. To me, it's like some person on the internet somewhere who I know nothing about. So it's a little bit strange for me. That's okay. I've been having very vivid dreams lately. Here's a little bit of a life hack, a little bit of a red pill. If you don't have a sleep schedule and you do what I do, you just stay up as long as you can and then crash from exhaustion, you actually have very vivid dreams. I find that whenever I get off a sleep schedule, every time I sleep, I have incredibly vivid dreams. So if you're ever looking for that, that's a fine thing. I've been having them all week. It's actually a pretty great experience. So a little bit of a red pill. Take the insomniac pill. That's much better for you. You feel good. You don't feel good, but you have a lot of energy. I think you feel like on edge. It's a good feeling. It's a different feeling. It's different. It's not for everybody. But it's definitely, it's not as bad as people say it is. People say, you're killing yourself. You don't look good. It's so bad for you. You're going to die when you're younger. It's like, well, I don't feel that way. I feel like making a lot of impulsive decisions, and I feel paranoid, So, anyway, Eleutheria says the Holocaust was 9 gays who died rollerblading. Ah, yes, the Owen Benjamin joke. Thank you. Neon Yahtzee says, follow Boomer Remover on Twitter. He's a funny goy. No. No. Anybody who's recommended by somebody who says he's a funny goy, I'm going to venture and guess and say he's probably not very funny. Morningstar says the moderator browbeat me into donating. Good, that means they're doing their job. ASDF says, Nick, will you be our philosopher king? Sure, yeah, I'll do it. I will reluctantly accept the position. NC Rid says, what happened to the Gunt retort? The Ralph retort? I don't know. I don't really keep up with it that much. Anand says, is the Bible best read cover to cover or used as a reference for moral and theological questions? Also thoughts on, okay, I'm not reading that part, but no, the Bible should be read cover to cover. I think there's definitely parts you can skip, and I don't know if it's the best to read it from the beginning to the end, in the sense that it's like you start with Genesis, and you go all the way to the end. I think I've read elsewhere that you can take it like you can do it like Pulp Fiction. You can take different pieces at different times. I don't know. I guess it's kind of up to your personal preference, but you should definitely read most of it. There are parts you can skip. I skipped a lot of it. I didn't skip a lot of it. I shouldn't say that. People are going to get in my mentions. Nick Fuentes is a fake Christian. I skipped the parts when they're talking about the rituals and they talk about the building of the ark and the, things like that. I skip certain parts where it's like, well, this is nothing I'm going to remember. There's not really pertinent content unless I'm actually studying the Bible. Most of it is not like that, but there are parts that are. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to skip these pages here. So, but yeah, you should definitely read all of it. Monochrome says, hey, Nick, love the show. I'm wondering, since you hate liberalism and democracy, have you read Mussolini's Fascist Doctrine? I think you would like his take. No, I have not read that. Kenny Jones says, what do you think of the pro-Jared fiasco? It's just a bunch of degeneracy. Not much else to say other than that, right? A lot of degeneracy, and the woman seems to be at the root of it all. Imagine that. Imagine that. The root of that controversy appeared to be a woman. James Charles, who's the pro-Jared, seems to be the root of both these controversies, is a psycho bitch. Wow, who could have called it? Shocker. I'm surprised. I'm genuinely surprised. Whenever we find something going wrong, and at the root of it there's drama over a woman who's causing trouble, I'm continually, it surprises me every time. I thought they were based. Samo says the Krasensteins are canceled on Twitter. Yeah, I saw that. Very good. Anand says, give a pardon to Tidy and that Anglo Fortnite kid. I will definitely give a pardon to those Angloids. Those guys are based and red-pilled, and I like them. Prince of Conquest says, I've noticed once there's one instance of someone's sense of purity is violated, they'll notice more and more BS and spiral into social conservatives. Think this is common or just big brain nibbas? I don't know. I don't know enough people who have gone down that path to have a good sample size. I don't know any social conservatives, truly. Oh, I can think of a handful of people that I meet on Twitter. But for the most part, I know a lot of people that are just totally degenerates, totally, sick people. So couldn't really tell. You don't have a large enough sample size. Dr. YT Berger says Teddy Spaghetti is a point psychologist. I don't know what any of that means. Bjolner says, do you know what really grinds my gears? Liberals. Yeah, thanks. Sam says, what do you think of rock? More satanic than hip-hop? I think neither are satanic. And if you think that, you're a gay person. So Vidya says, hey, big guy, where are your past episodes at? They're on private mode. Julian the Apostate says, hey, big guy, when Canada finally goes to hell, can I take refugee in the States? Love your show, by the way. No, sorry. If we let you in, we'd have to let everybody in. And, everybody in Canada is now Muslim. So I don't think we're going to be able to do that. Okay, looks like that's all our super chats. So I think that's going to do it for us for the evening. Did I miss any? I think that's everybody. So that's going to do it. That's going to do it for our show tonight. Remember to check us out at nicholasjfuentes.com/membership to become an America First Premium subscriber. It's only $5 a month, and you get one additional show every week. It's also the best way to support our show. 100% viewer funded, so we need the viewers' shekels. We need your shekels, all right? So be sure to check that out. The link is down below. Remember to subscribe to the show, give us a big thumbs up, leave a comment down below, click the notification bell to be notified every time I go live. Remember, we are on the air Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm Nicholas J. Fuentes. As always, thank you for watching. Thanks to our premium members. Thanks to our super chatters. Thanks to everybody who watches the show. We love you folks. And we'll see you tomorrow. Tune in. We'll have E. Michael Jones on the show. Big show, big guest. So be sure to check it out. But until then, have a great rest of your evening.
Americanism, not globalism, will be our credo. It's going to be only America first. America first.